Ladies and gentlemen, we're gathered here today to point and laugh at the humiliating existence that was, that was the Florida Gators football program. A football program that has been playing games since 1906, over 100 years ago. And in that over 100-year history, actually managed to matter during a 17-year period from 1991 to 2008. A football program that outside of that 17-year period was so pitiful, pathetic, piss poor, and sad that they couldn't even manage a single conference title, much less a national title. Outside of that 17 years, a football program that seemingly hired the worst possible coach they could find on purpose. A football program that, while on life support in the late 20-teens, hired a professional circus clown, Dan Mullen, to run their football team. A program that followed up that clown hire with none other than Sunbelt Billy, one of the Swamp People's retarded nephews. Ladies and gentlemen, as we gather here today to pay tribute to what used to be the Florida Gators football program, I would ask you to remember this. The Florida Gators football program, in 117-year history, is exceeded in its idiocy only by the delusion of its fans. So to the Florida Gators football program, we say this: rot in hell and have a shitty morning. Ooh. Okay. Calm down. Calm down. Calm down. Good morning, it's Uncle Lou here. Let's get serious for a second. It's Uncle Lou here. Yeah, that's right, it's me, Uncle Lou, live on LouTube for you. Thanks for watching the only Sunday morning college football recap video that actually matters right here on LouTube. The Your Season is Over video every Sunday. Man, got a good one today. Long list of losers. Before we get to that list of losers, of course, you already know we're going to go through the list of losers. Then I'm going to talk about some teams that won and looked good, some teams that won but I thought didn't look so good. I'm going to give you an updated Heisman list. I'm going to give you an updated playoff deal. The We're Back rankings we update every Sunday. The 4 We're Back fan bases. These are the fan bases that every offseason they're back. Their teams are going 100-0, yet year after year, they're never back. Those teams, of course, are Tennessee, Texas, Notre Dame, and Miami. Rank those 4 teams. What else do I have for you today? Man, look at this. I couldn't fit anything else on this page of copious notes. Nope, not even if I try. We're back. Heisman. Playoffs, your season is over list, good wins, bad wins. Couple of teams, I'm not sure if they're good wins or not. But before we get to the helmets over here, I do have some other losers that, look, on any given Sunday, I could probably pull 15 helmets off this wall. I try to limit it to 8 or 9 or so. But anyway, here's some teams. Right, I didn't take the helmet off the wall, but let's get these out of the way. Kansas State, what are you doing? What are you doing? Look. This game between Kansas State and Texas yesterday, some people have got the wrong idea here. This isn't a thing where Kansas State was 4-4 and they're just trying to pull some huge upset to knock Texas out of something. Kansas State was tied for first place in the Big 12. They had 2 losses, so likely not headed to the playoffs, but they still had everything to play for in terms of winning the Big 12. They were tied for first place with Texas in the Big 12. This isn't something where you're showing up as a 30-point underdog, and so at the end of the game, you're like, oh my God, we might actually win. Let's do something stupid and hope that it works. No. What were you doing in that overtime? First of all, Texas gets out to a pretty big lead in the first quarter and the first half, and to be honest with you, there were so many good games on at noon yesterday. I could do a whole video just on the endings of all the noon games yesterday. Kansas State and Texas, the Florida-Arkansas game. What was the other one that was right down to the wire? I'm leaving one out. Anyway, it was unbelievable, but you were one of them. Texas gets out to a lead. I'm going to be honest with you. I watch a lot of football. I've got 3 TVs, and I can put a couple more games down on the computer. There was so many good games on yesterday at noon. I couldn't watch them all at the same time. I found myself having to flip back and forth between some of the games. And it looked like Texas was going to run away with that thing. So I said, well, we check something else out. Whatever, I forget what it was now. But anyway, so that's what I did. And then next thing I know, I get a score update and Kansas State has done come back. So I did watch the fourth quarter and overtime. And Kansas State, boy, you blew it. You just absolutely blew it. Kansas State down in the first quarter, huge comeback, goes to overtime. Texas kicks a field goal in the first overtime. Great. You could have kicked a field goal and sent it to a second overtime. If you don't know what happened, Texas got the ball first, kicked a field goal. Kansas State got the ball, didn't score. So you're thinking, okay, kick a field goal. We're going to play another overtime. No, Kansas goes for it. Kansas State goes for it. It was a disastrous play. Texas defense made a great play. Kansas State's offense made a horrible play. I think it was a horrible decision to go. That's a massive underdog move. That's what that is. Now, Kansas State was an underdog on the road at Texas, but not a massive underdog. And like I said, this isn't a situation where some team is just swimming in the toilet with nothing to play for. You know, some kind of 2 or 3 win team. This is a team that was tied for first place. Boneheaded. There are 2 things plaguing college football, and I don't know how much I'll talk about it in this video. I might do a separate video tomorrow, maybe. There are 2 things that are absolutely running rampant in college football. Terrible coaching decisions. Saw that yesterday from Kansas State and a bunch of other teams too. and horrible refereeing. And it's across the board. And I'm not going to listen to anybody sit here and tell me that referees are for this team or against that team or such and such team pays the referees. That is such a basic bitch argument. It's ridiculous. The referees are just bad at their fucking job. They are horrible across the board. SEC, Pac-12, ACC, Big Ten, whatever. The referees are terrible at their fucking job. It's a plague in college football. But Kansas State goes for it. They don't get it. Texas hangs on to win. Kansas State, your season is over. You could have played the Big 12 title game. Maybe you still can. I'm not. Who knows? I mean, it's a fucking mess now because guess who else lost yesterday? They Sooner done tipped their wagon over for the second week in a row. So who knows? But the point is, you had a prime opportunity right there to take the entire Big 12 stranglehold, and you crapped it away. Your season is most likely over. Kansas State, wow, unbelievable. Who else do I want to talk about? Texas A&M. Loses to Ole Miss 38-35. Yet another nail in the coffin of Jimbo Fisher. Look, I'm convinced at this point we're going to find out who's right and who's wrong here. Texas A&M fans have been running around for a couple of years at least now saying they've got $11 billion, trillion, million, gazillion dollars. Money is no issue. It's buried in the desert, all the oil money, all this dumb shit, okay? A lot of other people, myself included, I'll admit, have said, I don't believe somebody's paying a $75 million buyout. I just don't. Now, of course I think Jimbo Fisher should be fired. He is horrible. He is probably the most underachieving coach in all of college football over the last 5 years. If you look at talent versus record, Jimbo is probably the most underachieving coach in all of college football, which therefore makes him probably the most overpaid coach in all of college football. Of course he should be fired. I'm going to have to see it to believe it with the $75 million buyout deal. If he is not fired at the end of this season, then you don't have the $75 million. And the Texas A&M fans are just wrong, or their shovels are broken and they're afraid to get out in the desert and start digging for that money. That's it. Because there is zero reason to keep Jimbo Fisher past this year other than we don't want to pay a $75 million buyout. That is the only reason. There's nothing to point to. He's already had multiple top recruiting classes, top 5, whatever. It's not like you say, well, he needs another year to get some more of his guys in there. Every one of his recruiting classes has been good. He had the number 1 recruiting class a couple of years ago. He's had multiple top 10 classes. He's been there 7, 8 years, whatever it is. There's no other, you're not waiting on anything. You're not waiting on him to get his guys. You're not waiting on one more recruiting class. You're not waiting on him to decide to get an offensive coordinator. He did that this year. There's nothing to wait for other than the fact that, do we have $75 million? That's it. And we're going to find out at the end of this year. Are the Texas A&M fans right? Do they have unlimited money? Do they want to get their shovels out and start digging and pay that $75 million? If they do, they will. And if they don't, they ain't. And you'll have Jimbo Fisher. But there is nothing else keeping him there at this point. An absolute failure at Texas A&M for Jimbo Fisher. Ole Miss, don't even walk around with your head up high. Texas A&M is fucking horrible. And you barely hang on to beat them 38-35. Jackson Dart had a great game, 387 yards, a couple of touchdowns. Judkins went over 100 yards. Basically, you played the best game you can play. And you beat Texas A&M by 3, a horrific Texas A&M team. I don't know what's going to happen if Ole Miss ever plays a team that knows what they're doing. But I think we're going to find out in 6 days. Hotty toddy. Hotty toddy. Hotty toddy my taint. Get your fucking bow ties ready, Ole Miss. Man, yeah, the fucking bow ties. We're real silverware, 200-year-old China. You're out here at a fucking tailgate. God damn, you look silly as fuck. Anyway, let's move on. Plenty of time for that this week. This bothers me. Now, I don't know if bothers is the right word. Nobody likes this, though, do they? God, I got to climb up in the chair. Air Force Why? Why? See all the service academies? Air Force, Army. What's the third one? Who can tell me the third one? Coast Guard, and then Navy. Air Force, what did you do? Yeah, well, you lost the Army. Hard to be mad at that. Everybody wants to root for the service academies, but Air Force was undefeated, ranked in the top 25. Army, honestly, is not that good this year. And not only did they beat you, they whipped you. 23-3. Wasn't even close. Cost yourself whatever shot you had at the New Year's Six Bowl. Air Force looks like it's going to be Tulane now. They're 7-1. They're the highest ranked non-Power 5 team. So I guess Tulane headed back to a New Year's Six. I don't know. We'll see. But Air Force, man, you blew it. You blew it. What else? Nebraska 20-17 over Michigan State. Lost. Lost 20-17 to a terrible Michigan State team. This is bad for Nebraska. They were at 5 wins. You know how hard it's been for them to get to a 6th win? They haven't made a bowl game since, 2016? You look down, you say, oh, Nebraska's 5-4, and they're playing Michigan State this week? Wow. Bowl eligibility, here we come. No, you lost to Michigan State, so that puts you at 5-4. You play Maryland next week at home. They're reeling. They've lost, 6, 7, 8 in a row? I mean, they lost a lot of games in a row. Maryland has. Can you beat them? The following week, on the road at Wisconsin. Can you beat them? They lost again yesterday, by the way. And then the last game of the year at home against Iowa. I would say Iowa's the toughest of those. You could beat Maryland and Wisconsin. You could lose to Maryland and Wisconsin too, though. Bowl eligibility, not a guarantee for Nebraska. They're at 5-4. They need one win in their last 3 games. Maryland, Wisconsin, Iowa. I think they're going to get it. I think they will beat either Maryland or Wisconsin, and maybe both. I don't think they're going to beat Iowa, but I still think they get there. I still think they get the bowl eligibility, but you lost yesterday to a terrible Michigan State team. What else before we get to the helmets? Vandy. Why do I care about Vandy? Well, I don't. Where are they at? Does it even matter? It might even be a better question. There they are. Black helmet with the gold V on it. They lost to the inbreeds down at the barn. Why is that a big deal? I guess it's not really a big deal. The game wasn't even close, 31-15. It's just funny to me that these two teams, and a lot of times when I tell people this stat, a lot of times they go, well, they've probably only played 4 or 5 times. No, these two teams have played 40, 50 times, something like that. They were 50-50 before yesterday. Auburn did not have a winning record over Vandy. They were completely tied 50-50 until yesterday. Shout out to the barn. After 120-something years or whatever it is that you've been playing football, you finally have a winning record over Vanderbilt. Congratulations. Both y'all's seasons been over for a long time. Let's get to the helmets. Start with this one. Southern Cal lost again. It's getting hard to remember when Southern Cal won a game. Last won a game. Things have just careened out of control at Southern Cal. Now, there's a couple of ways you can look at it. You could say, man, Southern Cal is just collapsing here. They started off so hot, undefeated, ranked in the top 10, and now look, they can't win a game. What happened? The wheels fell off. That's one way to look at it. There's also another way to look at it, which is, just look at the schedule. Southern Cal reminds me of Ole Miss last year. I don't mean the type of team they are. Let me back up on that. They're two totally different teams and programs, obviously. What I mean is, Ole Miss last year was 7-0, 6-0, and finished 7-5 or 8-4. In other words, they won a bunch of games, right? And then they lost like 4 of their last 5 or whatever it was. And you're like, wow, what happened? Injuries? What? No. Just look at the schedule. Ole Miss beat a bunch of bad teams in the first 2 months of the season last year and then lost to every good team they played. When you looked at Southern Cal's schedule this year, it looked very similar. Southern Cal's schedule was backloaded with difficult teams. The first month and a half of Southern Cal's season was played against a bunch of can of corns, really. And they went out and handled business, and Caleb Williams looked great, and Heisman numbers, and the running game was good, and the defense the defense looked shitty even in the first month of the season, but you see what I'm saying. But when you looked at their schedule, so maybe it's not that big of a surprise that this is happening to Southern Cal. But they lost again yesterday. Where is this at? They lost to Washington 52-42. Michael Penix versus Caleb Williams. This is a quarterback duel that a lot of people had been looking forward to for a long, long time. And both quarterbacks played well. Did I write any of the, I don't remember if I wrote any of this down or not. What is that? USC. Fourth quarter. Yeah, 0 points in the fourth quarter for Southern Cal. But both quarterbacks played well. I mean, it is what it is. So look, Washington is a more complete team than Southern Cal. But I'm worried about Washington. Are y'all? I thought Washington might be the best team in football through the first 5 or 6 weeks of the season or so. And they beat Oregon, right? And people are like, wow. And I still think they're a really good team. A really good team. And defensively, they're not Southern Cal. They're not LSU. They're nothing like that. They're not that bad. But when you watch them play, it's just something's not quite right, it looks like, with Washington. Another big win. They're undefeated. I'm not here to trash Washington, okay? Washington's a really good team. I've got them ranked 4th. Obviously, they're undefeated. And they may remain that way. Who knows? They're probably going to run up against Oregon again in the Pac-12 title game. More on Oregon in a minute. But I guess what I'm saying is, I'm not trying to come down on Washington. What I mean is, I guess over in the first 5 or 6 weeks of the season, I was higher on Washington overall in terms of like chances to win it all than I am now. And I'm not really sure why. I mean, Penix is Penix. He does Penix things. And people talk about Penix, but man, they've got 2 or 3 NFL wide receivers on that team too. I don't know if that wide receiver room is on an Ohio State level, but they've got some really, really good wide receivers there. They're fun to watch. But a track meet game yesterday with Southern Cal, back and forth deal. And Washington defensively came up with stops when they needed them. Southern Cal didn't score 80 points in the fourth quarter. So here I am saying, what's going on? But in the money quarter, Washington's defense showed up and Southern Cal's offense didn't. And that was the difference in the game. Southern Cal could not find the end zone in the fourth quarter, and they end up losing by 10. I'm always kind of, look, there's probably not a bigger asshole on the internet than me when it comes to like laughing and sometimes even making fun of things and stuff like that. And so I'm not getting on to anybody that's doing this. Who am I to get on to anybody for how they decide to trash talk or make fun? I don't. The Caleb Williams crying on the sideline, I think with his mom, there's a picture or a video going around. I don't know if it's after the game or just right towards near the end of the game. And he's like, I think he's hugging his mom or something. And it kind of looks, he looks like he's crying or whatever. And there's a lot of people having some fun with that. I'm not going to make fun of him for that. I kind of like it when, look, I'm not comparing Caleb Williams to Michael Jordan, but I think it was Michael Jordan. Maybe I'm wrong. It was somebody like Michael Jordan, though. Anyway, there's an old saying about what makes one of the biggest differences between great and good. There's a lot of good things. There's a lot of good movies, very few great ones. There's a lot of good quarterbacks, very few great ones. What's the difference between good and great when it comes to sports? I forget who said this, but somebody said, you have to hate, might have been Vince Lombardi. I don't know who, it doesn't matter. You have to hate losing more than you love winning. And I don't know that to be the case with Caleb Williams, but when I see something like I saw yesterday, that's what it makes me think of. The guy is just, he's given everything he's got. And look, a lot of fun has been made at Caleb Williams' expense. So the fingernail thing, some of the comments he's made, the thing about wanting to be part owner of an NFL team. But there is no denying his talent. And whatever issues or problems are going on at Southern Cal, they're not the fault of Caleb Williams. If Southern Cal had 22 Caleb Williams, they wouldn't have 3 or 4 losses or whatever it is. I mean, the guy is an absolute baller. And I didn't like to see that yesterday. But anyway, Southern Cal lost again. Season over, been over. There you go. Enough about that. Speaking of programs that are likely dead, not coming back, what is the deal with the state of Florida in general? And Florida State fans, man. I'm telling you, Florida State fans are setting themselves up for one hell of a crash. I have seen this before. what I'm seeing with Florida State fans, but let's stick with Miami for now. Miami lost again, this time to NC State. And where did Miami's offense go? What happened? Now, I talked about Southern Cal earlier and how you can point to the schedule is why like they looked like one team in the beginning and look worse now, or Ole Miss last year. It's not really the case with Miami. I mean, Miami played and beat Texas A&M early in the year. Now, Texas A&M ain't great, but in fact, they're not good at all. But like that's a team normally that would beat Miami. Didn't do it. Miami beat them. Looked good too doing it. And then the Georgia Tech game happened, and since then, it's just been a comedy of errors for Miami. I mean, they seem to not be able to win a game at this point. They're now 6-3. And when you look at their remaining games, man, at Florida State, home against Louisville, on the road at Boston College, they could lose all three of those and finish 6-6. 6-6 is going to be a huge disappointment. I'm telling you right now, if that's what happens. 7-5 is probably a disappointment. I think 8-4 was about the floor for Miami this year in terms of expectations. You're talking about year 2 of a coaching staff. Year 2 is a big year for a lot of coaches. A lot of coaches. Especially Mario needs that when year 1 was so bad. Last year was an absolute disaster. And I don't think there's anything that can happen this season that can make it worse than last season for Mario. But you expected more than this in year 2. You had to have. The bad coaching that cost you the Georgia Tech game, the blowout loss to North Carolina, and now you lose to NC State. Now, where not only did you not score a touchdown, you struggled to get first downs. I wrote this down, but and this is unbelievable. Here's every Miami possession, okay? Field goal, punt, field goal. 2 out of your first 3 possessions, you go down there, kick a field goal. Okay. That's your 6 points. That was in the first quarter. Here's every possession after that. Interception, fumble, punt, missed field goal, punt, turnover on downs, interception. You turn the ball over 4 times. You're 6-3. Your next 3 games are Florida State, Louisville, and Boston College. Boston College is not good, but neither is NC State. Neither is Georgia Tech. These are teams you can't beat. So I don't see another guaranteed win on this schedule for Miami. I see pretty close to 2 guaranteed losses, though. Florida State and Louisville are the 2 best teams in the ACC. And look, the thing about rivalry games and you can throw the records out, that's not true. It's just not. Go back and look at Florida State versus Miami. 99% of the time, the better team wins. Look at Georgia, Florida. 99% of the time in that series history, the better team wins. Oklahoma, Oklahoma State. 99% of the time, the best team wins. Alabama and Auburn. 99% of the time, the best team wins. This is some kind of saying that's just done taken on a life of its own and gotten out of control with the whole, well, it's a rivalry game, throw the records out the window. It's something people just say without even thinking really about what they're saying. Florida State is so much better than you, it's not even funny. And I'm not all that high on Florida State nationally in terms of their chances to win it all or anything. I'm not saying they're some kind of elite, formidable, unbeatable team when it comes to playoffs or anything like that. But they're way better than you, Jack. Way better. Guess what else? They're better coached. Mario Cristobal is proving his critics more and more right with every day that goes by. Now, I still think the talent level at Miami is going to continue to increase and continue to rise. They've got some NIL stuff going on down there that's working pretty well. I don't use that. That's not a knock. This is the age we're in. And Miami's doing it well down there. And Mario Cristobal is an A++ level recruiter. And the majority of the staff that he's brought in are also recruiting wizards. The talent level is going to continue to go up. I haven't changed my mind on that. That's 100% a fact in my opinion. But the knock on Mario Cristobal has not been recruiting. It's been in-game coaching, development, game planning, all the stuff that goes into playing football on Saturdays. Not accumulating players. He's great at that. He has just made it's just Mario Cristobal. I don't know if this is true. It's probably not true. If I sat down and actually spent a week looking it up, I could probably figure it out. But it seems like Mario Cristobal loses more games that he's not supposed to lose than any other Power 5 coach. Now, maybe that's just perception because a lot of his losses have been high profile, like the embarrassment that was the Georgia Tech thing. So maybe it just seems that way, and it's really not. And again, I haven't sat down and looked at every single game every single team has played in the last 8 years or whatever and said, oh, well, he wasn't supposed to lose that, but he did. But it seems that way. It seems that way. And I just don't know that that's the mark of a great coach. I don't know. I've got serious concerns about what's going on down at Miami in terms of winning football games. Again, I'm all in on the recruiting, and the talent level is going to increase. And that's going to result probably in an increase in wins, no matter how bad of an actual football coach Mario Cristobal is or ends up being. But that's going to put a ceiling on you, though. If Mario Cristobal is as bad as of an in-game coach, as bad of a preparation coach as it seems, and I'm not just talking about the last 2 years at Miami. This had the same issues at Oregon. So you've got, you've got evidence here to look at over 2 different schools. He's got a ceiling, and that ceiling is not going to be as high as Miami fans want it to be. It's not. So I don't know what really to say, but you score 6 points in the first quarter, you don't score again, and you lose 14-6 to a pretty below average NC State team. Not good for Miami. Not good at all. The only good thing about Miami is that they're not Florida. Oh boy, Rudy, I got some bad news for Notre Dame. Notre Dame fans, I need you to sit down for a second. I need you to sit down because I've got some hard truth that you're not going to want to hear. Okay? And this is one of those things that this is going to be very hard for Notre Dame fans to accept. This is going to be like Oklahoma fans. You remember when we kept telling Oklahoma fans that Lincoln Riley wasn't going to do it? That the defense was never going to get better and they didn't believe us? And then, eventually Lincoln Riley gave them one of these and left. And so now they all hate Lincoln Riley. But you remember that? It was clear as day to all of us, right? We all could see what was going on at Oklahoma. We're like, there ain't no way Lincoln Riley's ever winning a playoff game or a national title with what he's doing down there. The same way we see it now at Southern Cal, and Southern Cal fans can't see it, right? Everyone else can see it but them, right? What are some other examples? When Florida State hired Willie Taggart, almost everybody on earth knew that was a bad hire. Lord knows I did. Not Florida State, man. You couldn't tell them that. They didn't want to see it until the second or third year or whatever it was. And when reality set in. Notre Dame, man, Rudy, you're in a situation right now where the entire college football world knows something to be true. And you are denying it because it's going to hurt when you finally have to admit that it's true. Brian Kelly is 100 times the coach that Marcus Freeman is. Type. I'm tired of hearing about last year's turnaround. First of all, talking about half of any season to prove a point is kind of ridiculous, right? Do we think Ole Miss is some juggernaut because they started 6-0 or 7-0 last year? No, because they lost 4 of their last 5. So this idea that, well, Marcus Freeman won a bunch of games in the second half of the season last year. Okay, that doesn't mean the first half of the season didn't happen. That doesn't mean you didn't lose to Marshall. That doesn't mean you didn't lose to the worst Stanford team of my lifetime. Okay? And then this year, boy, beating Southern Cal, that just ain't enough. That just ain't enough. Notre Dame beat the absolute soul out of the first couple of teams they played. Navy, some FCS team they played, right? After spending the last 100 years bragging that they don't play FCS teams, you go out, you run the score up on Navy, you run the score up on an FCS team, fooled yourselves into thinking you were any good, and then reality comes crashing down. You lose to Ohio State in a game where you can't get a first down. Now you've lost again to again, the worst Clemson team in a decade, at least. 31-23. And this wasn't even really competitive. You're 7-3 now. You got 3 losses. You weren't even really competitive. You lost to, who else was it? You lost to Louisville or I mean, where is Southern Cal the marquee win? Southern Cal's not very good, bro. Marcus Freeman is not a very good coach. Okay, he's not. And Brian Kelly's going to out-recruit him at LSU. That's reality. Cry. Now, I'm not telling you Brian Kelly's some great coach. I think he's a good coach. Hell, he was at Notre Dame for what, 12 years, whatever it was, averaged over 10 wins a year. Is Marcus Freeman ever going to win 10 games in a year? He's already got 3 losses. The best he can do right now is 9-3. Brian Kelly was winning 11 games in his sleep up there. And you acted like you were glad that he left. And promote a guy that's never been a coach before. I don't know. I'm not ready to go full Sunbelt Billy on Marcus Freeman yet with the whole he doesn't know what he's doing deal. That's not the point. The point is you downgraded when it comes to head coach. That's just a fact. The rest of us see that. The rest of the college football world sees that. Right now, Notre Dame fan is 2019 Oklahoma fan. That's what you are. You are 2019 Oklahoma fan. You don't want to believe what's right in front of your face. You're 2023 Southern Cal fan. You're 2017 or whatever it was Florida State fan when Willie Taggart was no good and they didn't want to hear it. You're Florida fan right now. They don't want to hear about Billy Napier. That's what you are. Everybody else knows it. You don't. You lost 31-23 to Clemson. This game was never close or competitive. And let me, this is so bad. Sam Hartman. Again, you ran the score up on Navy and an FCS team in the first month of the season in an effort to do what? Impress who? What? Sam Hartman yesterday, 13 of 30. This guy's been in college. What? He's on the Stetson Bennett plan. He's been in college so long. 13 of 30? 146 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. You ought to be embarrassed and ashamed of yourself. This is a bad Clemson team, buddy. This is a Clemson team where the fans are yelling at the coach. The coach is so mad, he's yelling back. Their best player is out, Will Shipley. Their quarterback does not know what in the fuck he's doing, this Cade Klubnik. And it's not like he outplayed you. You found another way to lose. Klubnik was 13 of 26, 50% completion, 100 yards with 1 touchdown and an interception. Now, Maffa tore you up on the ground, that running back. This is funny, though. Maffa had 186 rushing yards. Guess how many rushing yards Clemson had as a team? As a team. Maffa himself had 186. Type down below what Clemson had as a team right now. I'll give you 5 seconds. How many rushing yards did Clemson have as a team? And I'm telling you, Maffa had 186. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Maffa, 186 yards rushing. The rest of the team, -10. Maffa had 186 rush yards. Clemson finished as a team with 176 rush yards. The entire rest of the team combined had -10 yards rushing. Maffa had 186. Klubnik, 50% completion percentage with an interception. And you lost. How do you lose to that stat line? Notre Dame ought to be embarrassed and ashamed. Absolutely embarrassed and ashamed. It's starting to become obvious to me why Notre Dame doesn't want to join a conference. You guys wouldn't stand a fucking chance. My God, you guys would be hovering around the Mendoza line year in and year out. Best you stay independent and beat up on a bunch of service academies if you know what's good for you. My God, y'all are irrelevant. This is bipolar. Bipolar. Where do these idiots go? Golly, they were in the top 10? No way. Yep, they were. Keyword is were. They won't be when we redo it next week, though, on tomorrow, Monday. Oklahoma fans, man, they are the most. They're like a yo-yo, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. Brent Venables is the greatest coach alive after they beat a bunch of nobodies and then Texas, right? I mean, they're ready to build a statue for this guy because he was 6-0. It was weird. They were talking this guy up. I mean, they were talking big boy shit about how great Brent Venables was. They were winning the Natty. They were winning the Natty 3 weeks ago. They told me. I got comments to prove. These people were so full of themselves. So full of themselves. Didn't they go out and almost lose to, who was it? Was it Central Florida? Didn't they lose to Kansas? Kansas? Wow. Oklahoma. Then they lose to Oklahoma State. Then they lost to Oklahoma State. This was the funniest loss yesterday. Maybe it wasn't the most embarrassing. Maybe it wasn't the most meaningful. It wasn't the biggest blowout. It wasn't even really some kind of huge upset. It was an upset, a small one. But here's why this was the funniest loss yesterday. Oklahoma, and look, I'm no Oklahoma fan, so this isn't me trying to trash talk Oklahoma State here. Again, this is reality. Oklahoma is the big brother program in that state. Oklahoma State's the little brother program. It's an Alabama-Auburn situation. It's a Georgia Tech situation. It's just what it is, okay? That doesn't mean that Oklahoma State never has a good team. And they're pretty good right now. I'm not knocking them. But that's just reality, okay? You ask 100 people to name a football team in Oklahoma, 101 of them are going to say, the Sooners. That's just what it is, okay? And Oklahoma decides they're going to up and not only leave their conference, the Big 12, not only are they going to leave the Big 12, they are going to abandon their little brother. They are going to leave Oklahoma State behind to fend for themselves, to eat table scraps off the floor with whatever Big 10 or whatever Big 12 TV money they can scrape together over there in that conference. And Oklahoma is riding off into the sunset to join the big bad SEC and make the big money. And they're looking back over their shoulder, giving Oklahoma State man one of these. Laughing at them as they ride off to the SEC. Oklahoma State, for obvious reasons, gets pretty pissed off about it. They don't like it. They were left out of the loop. They weren't consulted. Oklahoma never argued for Oklahoma State to be a part of the deal with the SEC. This was an Oklahoma and bitter enemies. This was Oklahoma and Texas, right? Working in tandem as a team to leave everyone else behind. And Oklahoma State is like the scorned woman here. She's like the housewife that's been cheated on here. And she's mad as fuck. And she's not going to take it anymore. So, of course, they're not going to play the game anymore. Oklahoma State says, well, Oklahoma chose to leave the Big 12. They don't want to play us anymore. Oklahoma goes, well, we don't want to play you in conference anymore. We only want to play you in non-con. Oklahoma State goes, nope. You could have played us every year when we were in the Big 12. You obviously don't want to do that. That's why you're leaving. So it's a back and forth thing. No one wants to give any ground. Everybody has a stupid fucking point to prove. So who suffers? The rest of the college football world, because we don't get to see this game anymore, at least not for the foreseeable future. It's the exact same situation that happened with Texas and Texas A&M. Egos get involved. Feelings get hurt. And next thing you know, the rest of the college football world is without one of the biggest rivalries in the sport. Because these two people can't sit at a table and come to some sort of an agreement. So all that going on, and Oklahoma rolls into Stillwater on the road, a home game for Oklahoma State. They roll in there with only one loss, a win over Texas, and sitting in the driver's seat to make not only the Big 12 title game, but to potentially make a college football playoff. In year 2 under Brent Venables, the greatest coach in the history of coaches, according to Sooners fans 3 weeks ago. Literally everything to play for Oklahoma. Everything on the line. Everything is lining up. The stars are aligning for Oklahoma. And Oklahoma State, the little brother, is sitting in the corner going, well, we can ruin all that. And that's what they did. That's what they did. See, Oklahoma State, in addition to having all that outside motivation, and I do believe all of that played a huge part in this game. Gundy's mad, the coach. We all know what you remember the things he said when it came out that Oklahoma was leaving. He's big mad about it. You know he has used that all season long to get ready for this game, and definitely the week leading up to the game. So not only does Oklahoma State have all that going for them, all that outside motivation that they can use, on top of that, they also were tied for first place in the Big 12 going into yesterday. So this was an opportunity for Oklahoma State not just to play spoiler against their big brother, Oklahoma, but to put themselves in the driver's seat, in a position to play for a Big 12 title. Now, they're not making the playoffs. They lost a non-con game early in the year, but they can still win the Big 12. And they go out and they beat you. And that's what they did. They beat you. Not a fluke, not lucky, not the referees, not the backup center got injured. None of these dried up fucking excuses that the lowest common denominator of college football fan try to use on a weekly basis. They beat you 27-24. You want to know why you lost this game, Oklahoma? You had 3 turnovers. Oklahoma State had 1. It's that fucking simple. That a 3-point game, yes, that matters. Turnover, of course that mattered. You had 3 times as many turnovers as they did, and you lost the game. I don't care that Dylan Gabriel had another 400 yards or whatever he had. Couldn't care less. I couldn't care less. The only positive for Oklahoma is that you lost the game 27-24. Because you're used to losing games 50-45 and shit, right? So you can still pretend that Brent Venables knows what he's doing and is building a great defense there because you held mighty Oklahoma State to 27 points. That's amazing. Too bad you only scored 24. Oklahoma, your season is over. No Big 12 title, no playoffs. Enjoy the Cheez-It Bowl. Might be playing LSU in the Cheez-It Bowl. I don't know. Well, LSU might not be good enough to get to the Cheez-It Bowl. This is funny, too. Where does this go? Right here, between Louisville and Maryland. You gonna eat your corn dog? What's that movie? Life. You remember the movie Life? Martin Lawrence and that? And they're sitting down at the table to eat lunch, and that big guy's sitting there staring at the other guy's tray, and he goes, "Hey, you gonna eat your cornbread?" And he says no, and he slides the cornbread to him, and the other guy goes, "Man, don't give him your cornbread." Anyway, you gonna eat your corn dog? Jalen Mildew ate some corn dogs yesterday. Holy moly. Where'd this come from? This is the Jalen Mildew that delusional Alabama fans told us we were going to see in the offseason. Oh, Jalen Mildew's going 1,500 yards rushing and 35 and 40,000 yards passing. Well, none of that shit's happening. But it happened yesterday. Holy fucking A. Listen to this stat line for Jalen Mildew. If you watch the game, you don't even need to know the stat line. You can just see it unfolding in real time. Mildew, 219 yards passing. Not great. 0 touchdowns. No interceptions. Now that is great. But on the ground, where's this Mildew been all year? On the ground. Where is it? Where I done lost my spot. Here on the ground. 154 yards on the ground and 4 touchdowns. He scored Alabama's first 4 touchdowns. Running on the ground. Boy, we thought we knew LSU had one of the worst defenses in the country. It's confirmed now. Holy shit. My God. You made Jalen Mildew look like Spencer Rattler against Tennessee last year. Remember that? Remember the South Carolina versus Tennessee game? We're like, holy fuck, where's this Spencer Rattler been? That's how bad LSU's defense was yesterday. Holy moly. 42-28. This was a good game in the first half. Really a good game through about 3 quarters. It pretty much was going back and forth like, tied, Alabama took a touchdown lead. Tied, Alabama took a touchdown lead. Tied, Alabama took a touchdown lead. And then LSU made a couple of mistakes. Alabama got up 2 touchdowns, and the game was over at that point. You could just tell that if that ever got to a 2-touchdown lead, you could just tell it was going to be over, and it did get to that 2-touchdown lead towards, the end of the third, beginning of the fourth quarter, whatever it was. And LSU just not able to come back. As good as Jalen Mildew played, Jaden Daniels had one of the best games yesterday for a quarterback that I've ever seen. I'm not trolling, and I've been praising Jaden Daniels, saying, yeah, he's really, really good, but I don't think he's winning the Heisman. These were now LSU lost, and we know Daniels got hurt. I'm going to talk about that in a second. But just listen to this. Do we all agree that Jalen Mildew played an amazing game yesterday? Can we all agree on that? I've been hard on Mildew. And look, if he plays like shit next week, I'm going to be hard on him again. This is the difference between a lot of college football fans and myself. A lot of college football fans think a guy is either good all the time or a guy is either bad all the time. And once they make up their mind which one somebody is, they refuse to ever admit the opposite, right? Well, the reality is that's not true. Very few college football players are good all the time, and very few college football players, honestly, are bad all the time. Some are. Some are. Jalen Mildew has had a couple of good games. I think the Texas A&M game was really good for Mildew. I think the yesterday's game against LSU was really, really good. He's also had some games where he was really, really bad. Under 50% completion, no rushing yards, more interceptions than touchdowns. I don't know why it's so hard for some people to come out on a Sunday after a player plays well and go, man, he played good. I also don't know why it's hard for certain people to come out on a Sunday and go, man, he played terrible, if the guy played terrible. People make up their mind that somebody is good or bad, and then no matter what, they won't admit the opposite. So you got a lot of people that say Jalen Mildew's the greatest thing ever, and when he comes out and plays like shit, they won't admit it. And then you got people that think he's no good at all, and when he comes out and plays good, then those people won't admit that. Why is it so hard to just say, if a guy plays good, go, he played good. And if he plays bad, he played bad. So you got a lot of Alabama fans that refuse to admit Jalen Mildew's ever had a bad game, and they think he's the greatest quarterback on earth. It's stupid. And then you got a lot of other college football fans, not fans of Bama, who think Jalen Mildew's no good. He's never played a good game, and he never will. Both of y'all are wrong. He's had a couple of good games. There's no questioning it. So we all can agree, or most of us are willing to admit, that Jalen Mildew had a great game yesterday, right? I read the stat line to you. I'll read it to you one more time. 219 passing, 154 rushing. Okay? Jaden Daniels also had exactly 219 yards passing. Exactly the same as Mildew. Jaden Daniels had 163 yards rushing. About 10 more yards than Mildew. Exact same passing numbers, 10 yards more rushing. Now, Mildew had 4 rushing touchdowns. Jaden Daniels didn't. He had 1, didn't he? Yeah, he had 1. One throwing. He had 1 throwing, 1 rushing. Mildew had none throwing, 4 rushing. Anyway, the point is, we should be able to admit Mildew had a great game. And I just read you Jaden Daniels' numbers. He has the exact same passing yards, and he's got 10 more rushing yards than Mildew. In 3 quarters. 3 quarters, Jaden Daniels did that. That's, where's it at again? 219, so basically 220 plus 100 is 320 plus, that's 380 yards of offense by Jaden Daniels in 3 quarters. A little less, whatever it was. A little less, a little more. I don't remember when he was at the end of the third, beginning of the fourth, when he got hurt, whatever it was. One of the best performances by a quarterback I've ever seen. It was just unbelievable. Unbelievable. Of course, he did get hurt. He got a concussion. I've seen a lot of talk about that hit, and people saying that Dallas Turner is a dirty player and that he's hurt 4 different quarterbacks this year. I'm going to admit, I watch a ton of football. I haven't seen every snap of Alabama football. And I've never heard before yesterday that Dallas Turner is a dirty player. So I don't know where this is coming from. I'm guessing it's coming from LSU fans, but I don't know. I don't have an opinion on it. As far as all I can talk about is that particular hit that I saw. I don't think Dallas Turner is a dirty player. Again, maybe he is, and I just haven't seen it or noticed it, or maybe he's not, and the LSU fans are just upset. I honestly don't know, but I haven't heard until yesterday this narrative floating around that Dallas Turner is some kind of dirty player that's hurt 4 quarterbacks this year. So whatever. Y'all can have your own opinion on that. Y'all can have your own opinion on that. I do have an opinion on the hit, though. I think that was targeting. I think he led with the crown of his helmet, and I think he hit Jaden Daniels right here. And I do think that should have been targeting. Now, there are probably 10 plays in any given game where maybe it's targeting, maybe it's not. This just happened to be one of those plays where they decided it wasn't targeting. I don't think that's the officials helping Alabama. I don't think that's the officials hating LSU. I think that's just the officials getting a call wrong. Now, that doesn't mean they got it wrong. That's just my opinion, okay? That I think that was targeting. But there's 10 or 20 calls in every single game. They're close calls. They're hard to determine. Holding is something you could probably call on every play if you wanted to. Pass interference is something you could probably call on every single play if you wanted to. So, you can't just... LSU didn't lose the game because Dallas Turner didn't get called for targeting. That's just ridiculous. So the LSU fans can stop with that. You didn't lose the game because Jaden Daniels got hurt. You were down by 14 when he got hurt. And you already know how I feel about this whole thing anyway. You got to put another guy in. Yeah, it sucked it was your quarterback, but half of you wanted Nussmeier to start this year anyway. LSU, man. Over half of you. I've got the receipts. I've got an entire off season's worth of comments from LSU fans. Over half of you wanted Nussmeier to be the starter. So yeah, sucks that anybody gets hurt. We don't want to see anybody get hurt. But it's not like you brought in some dead leg off the bench who's never done anything. You guys were in love with him. You wanted him to be the starter. And he didn't play well in the fourth quarter. And, Alabama defensively tightened up and hangs on to win the game by 14. It is what it is. That's just what it is. You didn't lose because Jaden Daniels got hurt. You didn't lose because the referees didn't call targeting on Dallas Turner. None of that. You lost because you couldn't tackle Jalen Mildew, and you let him score 4 rushing touchdowns on you. That's why you lost. You lost for the same reason people have been doubting you all year. Your defense is a fucking joke. Now, the Alabama fans get mad. Now, keep in mind that Alabama fans have been saying LSU's defense is terrible for 2 months. Okay? Because it is. Everyone has been saying it because it's true. Now, you come out and you go, man, LSU's defense is terrible. Alabama fans go, well, you just don't want to give no credit to Alabama's offense. Everybody's offense does. It doesn't mean Alabama's offense didn't play good. Yes, Alabama's offense played good. Just so happened to be against a terrible fucking defense. Both things can be true. Alabama fans themselves have been running around for 2 months talking about how bad that LSU defense is. And it proved to be true yesterday. The only thing that surprised me about LSU's defense yesterday is that Alabama attacked it on the ground instead of through the air. I thought this would be the game we would see Mildew throw for 400 yards because LSU's secondary doesn't even exist. LSU's secondary didn't exist last week. And then they brought in 2 brand new corners that never played. They had injuries and all this shit. They were moving people around like chess pieces in the secondary. They didn't know what they were doing back there. So I thought Alabama was going to come out and throw it all over them. Nope, on the ground, the Mildew special. All right, so there you go. That's my actual real thoughts on the LSU-Alabama game. Now, to the LSU man. Your best player got hurt in this game. Your best player got hurt in this game. So, what does that mean? Well, normal people, we know it doesn't mean anything. You got to put another guy in. But what does that mean for Alabama fans? What does that mean? Well, LSU, man, it means you get to run around from now to the end of time saying that Alabama didn't beat you. They only beat you because your best player got hurt during the game. That's it. You can 100% tell them that. It's not true. But they think it's true. Alabama fans think it's true. Because they've been saying it for 2 fucking years.
Well, that's different, Woo. Alabama beat you when they had Jamison Williams, and then when Jamison Williams got hurt, you beat Bama. So it's different. No, it's not. Jaden Daniels beat you, dummy, 12 months ago, the last time you played. They beat you. LSU played Bama. Jaden Daniels played the whole game, didn't get hurt. LSU won. The next time LSU and Bama played, Jaden Daniels got hurt in the second half, and Bama won. So hold your head up high, corn dog man. You lost to Bama, but according to Gump logic, it doesn't count. You really won the game. You only lost because your best player got hurt in the second half. And Alabama fans have no choice but to agree with you because they have been singing that exact same tune for not one, not one, but 2 years. So, congratulations to LSU for the win, I guess, according to Bama fans. I don't know. It's very confusing trying to keep up with Gump logic. You know what's not confusing? Trying to figure out whether Colorado is going to win or lose every week. They're going to lose the rest of their games. They're not winning another one. Not making a bowl game, not winning another game. It's just is what it is. They're losing out the remainder of the season. Why? They don't have a head coach. They don't. I've never seen a team go this long without a head coach. Usually they promote somebody to an interim coach or whatever, but Colorado fired their head coach at the end of last year, and they've yet to hire a head coach. So it's no surprise to me that they're not any good. But they lost yesterday to Oregon State 26-19. 2 garbage touchdowns they scored late, okay? So you can take 14 points off of that 19. They had 5 points at the end of the third quarter. A field goal and a safety. That's all they had. Through 3 quarters, they had 5 fucking points against Oregon State. They scored 2 garbage touchdowns in the end. It was 20-5 at the end of the third quarter. Do you know how many rushing yards Colorado had yesterday? If I put the over under of Colorado rush yards yesterday, if I put the over under at 0 yards, would you take the over? Or would you be smart and take the under? Colorado had -7 yards rushing yesterday. -7. And I know what you're thinking. Well, Shedeur Sanders must have been sacked 20 times. Well, he was sacked 4 times, but that's only about half what he's normally sacked. So that doesn't account for all of it. That just means they can't run the fucking ball. Now you're probably saying, well, they've had a hard time running the ball all year. True. They're not a great running team because their offensive line is so bad. I will agree with you there. Deion Sanders is not a football coach. Never mind a head coach. He's not any type of football coach at all. And I've been thinking about it ever since I made that video last night. You know what Deion Sanders is? Deion Sanders is trying to be, wants to be, thinks he is the equivalent of an NFL general manager. It just so happens that this general manager, Deion, gets to stand on the sidelines with a fake gold whistle that doesn't even blow. But that's what he's not a football coach, okay? He's not. I don't think he understands how to be a football coach. Being good at the game of football doesn't make you a good football coach, okay? There's lots of examples and situations. Being good at something does not necessarily mean you are going to be good at teaching that something, whatever it is. You might be the best car salesman at whatever car lot you work at. That doesn't mean that you necessarily could teach someone else to do it, okay? It's a different skill set. Playing the game of football not only doesn't make you a good coach, one's got nothing to do with the other. Nothing at all. So he's not a football coach. I don't know what he is, but he's not a football coach. But I can't get past him replacing the offensive coordinator during the week, this past week. Sean Lewis is a good coach. Sean Lewis knows what he's doing. He's innovative. He's creative. He is used to taking less talented pieces and matching them up against more talented pieces and having success doing it. He was the head coach and the offensive mastermind at Kent State for a long time. A long time. And Kent State was a decent team. Look at all the fits they gave Georgia. Go back and watch, if you've got time and care, go back and watch Kirby Smart's post-game press conference after last year's Kent State game. And listen to Kirby talk about how hard it was to defend Sean Lewis's offense, okay? So Deion brings him in. The best hire he made, by far, was bringing Sean Lewis in to run the offense. Now, I'm not saying Colorado's offense has been great, but it's been way better than their defense. Like, if you were going to pinpoint one side of the ball that needed improvement, it would be the defense. The defense has been horrific in almost every single game. The offense, although they can't run the ball and the offensive line is suspect, they've had success this year offensively. They have put up points in multiple games. I mean, how many times have they scored over 30? A lot. So I don't understand how in week 10, you look around and you go, you know what we need? A new offensive coordinator. I don't get it. I don't understand. And I didn't understand until I watched the game last night and then got up this morning and looked at the box score and the stats. Colorado had -7 rush yards yesterday. You know how many rushing attempts they had? How many rushing attempts did Colorado have yesterday? 19. That's it. 19 times Colorado lined up and ran a running play. I went back and looked at every single game Colorado has played this year. Every single one. Every single one. This is by far, the least number of rushing attempts Colorado has had in a game. By far. Why? Why? Why now, at this point in the season, when there's nothing left to play for in terms of Pac-12 titles or anything, why now abandon the running game? Well, maybe if you're trying to get your son into the NFL, maybe if you're trying to stat pad for your son instead of doing what's best for your team, maybe. The least amount of rushing attempts Colorado has had in a win this year is like 30-something. Deion Sanders is not a football coach. He doesn't care if Colorado wins or loses. He doesn't. He cares if Shedeur Sanders puts up a lot of numbers. He cares if Shiloh Sanders is covering every team's best receiver so he can get the most amount of looks from the NFL. And he cares about playing Travis Hunter 150 snaps a game. That's it. 19 rushing attempts. That's why Sean Lewis was replaced as offensive coordinator. He wouldn't get in line. Deion probably went to him and said, "We're not running the ball anymore. The season's over. I just want to prop up Shedeur with as much numbers as I can. We're not running the ball anymore. We're just going to air it out constantly for the whole game." And Sean Lewis looked at him and went, "We're not going to do that. We won't have any success. You can't be one-dimensional." Look, even if you run the ball, and I'm a fan, so I get aggravated too when I watch a team, my team, whatever team, run the ball up the middle 2 or 3 times. They don't gain any yards, and you go, why the hell do they keep running it up the middle? You have to. If you don't attempt to run the ball, you can't throw the ball. You just can't. You have got to at least make the defense know that you are willing to run the ball. I think Sean Lewis said, "No, I'm not doing that. We're going to run the ball." And Deion said, "Well, then you're not calling plays anymore. Get out." And he brought a do-boy in, Pat Shurmur, that'll do it. That's what I think happened. And until somebody convinces me otherwise, that's what I'm going to continue to think. 19 rushing attempts yesterday. That's the least amount of rushing attempts Colorado has had all season long. And I will remind you that they only scored 6 points in the first 3 quarters of this game. 2 field goals was all they could manage in the first 3 quarters. In the fourth quarter, when the game was over, they scored 2 garbage touchdowns, one of them with a minute and a half to go. We all know the story there. Prevent defense for Oregon State. They don't care if you score. We've seen it a million times. The worst offensive performance of the year by Colorado. Shador, only 240 yards passing. Was one of his lowest passing totals of the year. Why? They didn't run the ball. His numbers should have been sky high. They weren't. Why? Because you didn't run the ball. Oregon State didn't have to respect your ability to run the ball or your willingness to run it because you would ban 19 rushing attempts the entire game. By far the fewest they've had. Deion's not a football coach. Don't know what the fuck he's doing. Eli Drinkwitz is a football coach. He is a football coach. And right now, he's a coach who is getting above. He is getting his players to play above their talent level. Missouri is not a. I'm not going to come on here and shit talk Missouri. Oh, they're terrible. They're horrible. Blah blah blah. Missouri's a pretty good team. Who's left for Missouri to play? Florida, Tennessee. Who else? Anyway, they might win 10 games. They might go 10-2. They lost to LSU. They got a win over Kansas State. And they gave Georgia all Georgia wanted yesterday. For the most part. Georgia wins 30-21. Georgia pretty much took Luther Burden out of the game. He had 4 or 5 catches for 40 yards or something. That's it. He did have 1 touchdown, but they pretty much took him out of the game. Running is what kept Missouri in this game. And that surprised me. I'm not going to lie. It surprised me. Missouri, where I think I wrote this down. Missouri had 151 rushing yards. Wow. Georgia held Missouri to their lowest point total of the season, 21. Georgia had a run in the third quarter, was it? And the game was over at that point. They scored 13 or, was it 17 unanswered points, something like that in a row in the game was over. Missouri didn't give up, though. They hung in there, scored again, made it a 1-possession game in the fourth quarter. Georgia scored, got it to 9, and that was kind of it. But Missouri gave it everything they had. They come up short, 30-21, least amount of points they've scored all year. Their quarterback, Brady Cook, 2 interceptions. This is a guy that broke every record known to man in terms of most pass attempts in a row without an interception. But the last 3 or 4 weeks, he's been turning the ball over. He did it twice again on Saturday. And look, you're not going to come into Athens and win if you're negative in the turnover deal. You're just not going to do it. Again, I'm not shitting on Missouri. I'm just saying Missouri would tell you the same thing. Dinkwitz would tell you the same thing. Brady Cook would tell you this. Anybody that knows anything would tell you that. You're not going to go into somebody else's house as a 15-point underdog, lose to turnover battle 2-0 and win the game. It's just not going to happen. Not going to happen. 2 interceptions for Cook. He did have 1 touchdown pass to Burton that I mentioned. 212 passing yards, so not great for Cook. But 151 on the ground. That is good. Carson Beck, 254. Not a great day for him. Well below his average. Not his best day. Credit to Mizzou for that, but he was 254 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Luther Burden, 3 catches, 53 yards, and a touchdown. Georgia had 3 sacks, but Beck also got sacked 3 times, which I believe is the most amount of times he's been sacked in a game all year. Most games he doesn't get sacked at all. So I thought Missouri played well. Did they play well enough to win? No, you can't turn the ball over in that situation. You just can't. And they would have needed a bigger and better game out of their best players, Brady Cook and Luther Burden and the other guy, Wilson or whatever his name is. They would have needed kind of like career days from those guys to win this game, and it didn't happen. But I still think Missouri's a decent team. I don't think they're, I don't think they're, people are calling them overrated. Everybody Georgia beats is overrated. We win the national championship game. Well, whoever you beat was overrated. So I get that. So I guess technically, if you want to go off of rating, any team that loses is overrated because they're going to drop, right? So Missouri was 12? Now, when I'm recording this video, the rankings have not come out yet. By the time you're watching it, they might have. You can let me know in the comments right now if they have. My guess, I think Missouri was 12 or something. Maybe they fall to, 15 or 16? They're 8-2. So maybe they fall to 15 or 16 or something. And I think they'll finish in the top 20. Like I said, they play Florida and Tennessee. I think they're better than both of those. Teams. In fact, Tennessee plays on the road at Missouri this week. I'm willing to bet neither one of that's like a 1-point game. I don't know who will be favored, whether it'll be Tennessee or Missouri, but my guess is it's like 1 point one way or the other. So that's a 50-50 game, but they'll beat Florida. They'll get to 9 wins at least, maybe 10 if they can beat Tennessee. So are they a great team? No. Were they overranked at 12? Well, yeah, because now they're not 12. Are they going to finish in the top 20? Yeah, they're going to finish in the top 20. But their season is over. Yep. All right, that's it for the helmets. Here we go. We're back. It's time to update the We're Back list. Again, we do this every week. There are 4 teams and 4 fan bases that prop those teams up every offseason. The season starts if those teams beat anybody that's ranked at all, or anybody that it has any type of a heartbeat, then that's proof. And now they're going 100-0 and they're winning it all, but yet they never do. The teams are Texas, Tennessee, Miami, and Notre Dame. None of these teams have mattered in forever. So we rank them every week by who's the most back. Well, this week coming in at number 1, Texas. Texas is the most back this week. They cleared another hurdle. They beat the mighty Kansas State Jayhawks to improve to 8-1. I think 8-1, right? Only remaining game really they have left that could possibly be anything at all is on the road at Iowa State, who lost this past weekend to Kansas. But other than that, I think they play Texas Tech and TCU or something. 2 bad teams. So it looks like Texas is going 11-1 and making the Big 12 title game and potentially the playoffs. So it could be that Texas is the first team in the history of the We're Back rankings to get out of the We're Back rankings by actually being back. We'll see. But they come in at number 1. Tennessee comes in at number 2 this week. They beat an FCS school in November yesterday. Number 3, Notre Dame, absolutely humiliated by the worst Clemson team in a decade. Sam Hartman appears to be 1,000,000 times worse today than he ever was when he was at Wake Forest. Why? Probably Marcus Freeman. He doesn't know what he's doing, people. He doesn't know what he's doing, Notre Dame man. Y'all, Notre Dame man, I'm telling you. Marcus Freeman. No. Number 3, Notre Dame just did them. And number 4, Miami. They lose to a horrible NC State team and already went through the whole thing. They only scored 6 points. That was in the first quarter. They kicked 2 field goals in their first 3 possessions. After that, absolutely nothing for the remainder of the game. Just an abysmal, piss-poor performance for Miami. They come in dead last this week in the We're Back rankings. Here you go. Here are some names. Look, normally when we get into this month of the season, the Heisman list starts to get easier to figure out. You start to kind of narrow it down. That's not the case for me. I'm just going to admit to you right now. In the beginning of the season, I had about 4, maybe 5 names I thought were going to be the Heisman list. I've got about 8 or 9. I don't know. This is getting hard to figure out, and it's complicated by the fact that Jaden Daniels got injured, and we don't know how much time he's going to miss. Plus, he's now a part of a 3-loss team. If they lose another game, he's definitely out. We have seen a 3-loss Heisman winner, Lamar Jackson, and he kind of reminds me of Jaden Daniels, to be honest with you. So we have seen a 3-loss Heisman winner, but if he misses a game or LSU loses another game, I think he's out. But right now, I've still got Daniels on my Heisman list. He had 382 total yards yesterday. Just unbelievable. 2 touchdowns, an interception, and a rushing touchdown. I've got Bo Nix on my Heisman list. He had 389 yards total yesterday. 4 passing touchdowns, 1 interception, and 2 rushing touchdowns. Bo Nix with a 6-touchdown performance yesterday. Oregon absolutely dominated again. And don't look now. Oregon might be the best team in the country right now. They're playing some of the best football on the planet right now. I'm going to talk about that in a minute when I get to my playoff predictions and my playoff rankings. Marvin Harrison, I think, deserves to be on everyone's Heisman list. He's not winning it. He doesn't have the numbers. It's not his fault. It's Kyle McCord's fault. Kyle McCord's a garbage can. He's terrible. I might talk about him in a minute. But Marvin Harrison yesterday, 4 catches for 25 yards. I'm sorry. It's just not getting it done. I'm not trying to rain on your parade. It's just not getting it done. He did have 2 touchdowns, but come on, 25 yards. Again, not his fault, but it's the Heisman's a numbers game. But I've got him on my list because I think he's one of the best players in football. Michael Penix yesterday, 252 total yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, 1 rushing touchdown. So 3 total touchdowns for Penix. Jordan Travis yesterday, 345 total yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, and 1 rushing touchdown. So 2 total touchdowns for Jordan Travis. J.J. McCarthy, no, doesn't matter. I'm not voting for somebody that's got where they got through the benefit of cheating, and I don't think anybody else should either. So I'm not even going to bother listing off his numbers. Carson Beck yesterday, 265 total yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He's not winning it. The only way here's what's interesting to me. I don't think Carson Beck's winning the Heisman. I don't think he's going to have the numbers, particularly the touchdowns he's going to be way short on. But if you look at the odds to win the Heisman, who do you think has the best odds? I've got the top 5 right here. These are just the odds, the betting odds right now to win the Heisman. I'm going to give you 1 through 5. Number 1, best odds to win the Heisman right now, Michael Penix. Number 2, best odds to win the Heisman right now, Bo Nix. Number 3, best odds to win the Heisman right now, Jordan Travis. Number 4, J.J. McCarthy, but again, scratch him off the list. Number 5, Carson Beck. So Beck is 5th in the odds right now. Now, that doesn't mean those are going to be the 5 finalists. We're just talking betting odds there. I don't think Beck's going to get the numbers. And usually the Heisman winner is somebody who is playing good 2 years, right? Caleb Williams was good in 2021, won the Heisman in 2022, and you can find a pattern of that. Going back with the Heisman Trophy. So I just don't think Beck's going to win it. If Georgia's 13-0 and he's close, he may get an invite like Stetson Bennett did, but I don't think he'll win it. So there you go. That's the Heisman. Here you go with the playoffs in that. If I had to predict the playoffs right now, today, I think Texas gets in. A win over Bama. They beat Kansas State yesterday, who's ranked. They get Iowa State in a couple of weeks. They'll then get a matchup with maybe Kansas State again, maybe Oklahoma again, maybe Iowa State, maybe Oklahoma State. In any case, it's going to be a ranked team in a Big 12 title game. If they win that, they're going to be 12-1 with a Big 12 title. I think that's what happens, and I think they would get in. Georgia. Georgia's undefeated. They've got margin for error if the loss occurs during the regular season. I am not convinced a Georgia team, go back to 2021, for example. Georgia was 12-0 in the regular season. They lost the SEC championship game, but still got into the playoffs and then went on to win the national title. I'm not convinced that would happen this year with Georgia because of their weak non-conference schedule. Not necessarily how people like to laugh about wins over Mizzou. Look, trolling aside, Mizzou, top 20. Ole Miss, we play this week, they're top 10. Tennessee, the week after that, they're top 20. Georgia's going to end the season with 3 top 20 wins in a row. That's great. But I do think their non-con schedule might hurt them if they lose the SEC championship game. But if Georgia loses to Ole Miss or Tennessee, gets to the SEC championship game at 11-1 and wins it, they'll be in at 12-1 with an SEC title. I don't think they'll be in at 12-1 without the SEC title. In other words, if they were to lose the SEC title game. But for right now, I've still got Georgia in because they're undefeated. And I think they've got a chance to prove something this past weekend, which they did, and over the next 2 weeks. I've got Michigan at 3. Now, this isn't my picks. This is my prediction. I want to get that clear. I'm not putting Michigan in my playoffs if I'm in charge. You can see I've got Michigan ranked 5th last week in my top 10. They're never going higher than that for me. Michigan cheated. It's obvious to me. It's the most clear-cut, out in the open, caught red-handed cheating scandal in college football in my lifetime. And I don't think Michigan should be rewarded with a trip to the playoffs. That being said, I'm not on the playoff committee. I'm not the Big Ten commissioner. I don't get to decide whether they get punished or not. I don't think anything's going to happen to Michigan. So far as my predictions go, I've got Michigan getting in. I think they're going to run the table 13-0 and be in the playoffs. The 4 team is where it gets really hard, and I've narrowed this down. I've got Oregon getting in, and that's my prediction for now. Now, my prediction changes every week, but I think Oregon might be the best team in the country right now. They are playing at another level. They are impressive. And I don't know if you don't watch them that much, or maybe the only game you watched was the Washington game. I don't know. They look really, really good. They look extremely good. And if they were playing Washington tomorrow, I would pick Oregon to beat them, and I don't think it would be particularly close. Now, they don't play tomorrow. They got a few more weeks, and Oregon's got some hurdles to get past still. And the dangerous thing with Oregon is because they lost that game to Washington, a game they should have won, by the way, coaching malpractice. But because they lost that game, they have no margin for error. They cannot afford to show up and sleepwalk against somebody in the Pac-12 over the next 3 weeks and take another loss, because a 2-loss Pac-12 champion is just not getting in. They've got to run the table. I'm predicting that they do it. So my playoff predictions as of today, Texas, Georgia, Michigan, and Oregon. Now, that leaves some good teams out. Florida State, Alabama, Ohio State. Let's start with the obvious, which is Florida State. I don't think Florida State's very good. Now, that's a relative term. I don't think they're very good compared to any of these teams, is what I'm saying. I don't think they're on the level of any of these teams. I don't. Now, I don't know what's going to happen. Well, first of all, if Florida State is 13-0, they're getting in. Okay? I think what's going to happen, I think Louisville is going to win out the regular season. They're going to finish 11-1. I think Florida State is going to win out the regular season and finish 12-0. Or potentially, Florida State plays Miami this week, and then in 2 weeks they play Florida. Now, they're better than those teams, okay? But if Florida State slips up, they could be in trouble. But right now, I think they're going to win out 12-0. I think they're going to play an 11-1 Louisville in the ACC title game. And I think 11-1 Louisville beats Florida State in the ACC title game. That's my prediction. I change these predictions every Sunday. So don't get, you whatever you're doing, right, punching the air right now and drooling down your chin. And next Sunday, I may change my predictions and I'll have Florida State in, okay? If you want to go back and troll me on my preseason predictions, I can't change a preseason prediction, okay? My preseason playoff prediction was Georgia, Texas, Michigan, Southern Cal. So you can already troll me there about Southern Cal. My predictions as of today, okay, at the end of week 10 for the playoffs, Texas, Georgia, Michigan, Oregon, with Florida State and Louisville on the outside looking in, Ohio State on the outside at 11-1, losing to Michigan, and Alabama with a second loss in the SEC title game to Georgia. All right, I could change that next week. Who knows? Who knows? Is that about it? Hey, Iowa won yesterday, 10-7. God almighty. 10-7. They played Northwestern. Yeah, the ding-a-ling car wash. The over-under on that game was 29. I've been watching football for 40 years. I don't know if I've ever seen an over-under that low of 29. And I laughed all week, and I said, shit, that ain't low enough. Take the under. And guess what? The under hit. Way hit. A total of 17 points scored in that game. Iowa won 10-7. More bad wins. Ole Miss over Texas A&M, 38-35 against a horrible Texas A&M team. Don't worry, we're going to put Ole Miss out of their misery this coming week. The Lane train's getting derailed. Lane Kiffin's the most overhyped, overrated coach in America. What a joke he is. An absolute joke. Florida State 24-7 over a 2-win Pitt team. Boy, you take Florida State above Virginia, they don't know what the fuck they're doing, do they? Wow. Yeah, almost lost at Boston College, only won by 2, and you go up to Pitt yesterday. Struggle bus to beat them 24-7. Florida State didn't score any points in the first quarter, and they didn't score any points in the fourth quarter. Luckily, Pitt went to sleep in the second and third quarter. You scored 10 points in the second, 14 points in the third. You beat Pitt 24-7. Throw a parade. Michigan won 41-13. Not a good win. How the fuck do you give up 13 points to a terrible Purdue team when you know every play they're running? That's bad, man. You know everything they're doing before they do it with the sign stealing, and you let them score 13 on you? That's poverty. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. You ought to be more ashamed that you let Purdue score 13 when you know every play they're running before they play it. You should be more ashamed of that than you are that you have been caught cheating. Jesus. Who looked good yesterday? Kansas beat Iowa State. Kansas, don't look now. Kansas is 7-2. What a great year for Kansas. Good story, too. Georgia Tech rolled 45-17 over Virginia. I hope Georgia Tech keeps it going. It hasn't been any fun beating Georgia Tech lately at the end of the year as a Georgia fan because they've been so miserable. I mean, by the time the Georgia game comes around, they're sitting at 2 or 3 wins and, they won't even show up at the game and all that kind of stuff. They got a new coach this year. They're excited. They've won a couple of games here lately. I hope they win out the regular season so that they come to that Georgia Tech game high on their horse so that I can knock them right the fuck off. That would make me extremely happy. But yeah, they won yesterday. Clemson won yesterday. That was a good win. Why? Well, any Clemson win is a good win at this point. Louisville beat Virginia Tech 34-3. Now, Virginia Tech was 4-4, not a great team, but Virginia Tech was tied with Louisville for second place in the ACC. So, again, I think we're going to see Florida State versus Louisville in the ACC title game. There you go. Penn State 51-15 over Maryland. Penn State can blow out bad to average teams, and then they play the good teams and don't know what they're doing. Oklahoma State, obviously a huge win over Oklahoma. Bama, I think Bama's a good win, 42-28 over LSU. I don't know where to put the Texas win. I don't know that it's a bad win. Kansas State's a good team, and Texas beat them with a backup quarterback. I mean, that's pretty good, right? But Kansas State gave you that game with that boneheaded decision they made at the end. Oregon, good win, 63-19. There you go. Ohio State's another one. Don't know where. 35-16 over Rutgers. Rutgers was 6-2. Now Rutgers was unranked, but they're not a terrible team. I mean, come on. They're not Northwestern. I mean, they're a decent, so okay, they're not ranked. What do you think they are? 30th? 35th? I mean, that doesn't really matter. It's Rutgers, but Ohio State beat them 35-16. But man, Kyle McCord, 189 yard, an absolute roster full of NFL wide receivers, and Kyle McCord threw for 189 yards against something called Rutgers. Congratulations. Marvin Harrison had 2 touchdowns. What else is new? Travion Henderson, 128 yards rushing. The rest of your entire team, though, 11 yards rushing. Boy, you better hope it doesn't happen to Travion Henderson. We already know you love to use the injury excuse anyway. Unbelievable. Washington over Southern Cal. All right, there you go. Your season is over video for week 10. That was amazing. Florida's dead. They're never coming back. You want to talk about Florida? We kind of skipped them because I threw their fucking helmet in the trash can. Florida is an absolute fucking failure of a football program. They are in the most high school rich talent state in the country. You can't throw a rock down there without hitting 100 4-stars and a dozen 5-stars. And these people not only can't have a relevant season, they can't even have a winning fucking record. They're about to have their 3rd year in a row with a losing record. It's just unacceptable. Bragging about getting to 5 wins a couple of weeks ago. Since then, you've done nothing but get blown out by Georgia. You lose yesterday to Arkansas. Arkansas had not won a SEC game all year. They had changed coordinators in the middle of the season. Everybody wants Sam Pittman run out of town. Well, how do you lose that at home? Was it homecoming yesterday for you? Black uniforms for a noon game? Now, look. We've had a lot of fun making fun of Tennessee because they've worn 6 different uniforms this year. I don't have a problem with a team wearing an alternate uniform. I don't. One, the Oregons and the Tennessees, where you got to guess what they're wearing every week, is bullshit. So I don't think it's, point and laugh worthy that Florida wore an alternate uniform. But wearing all black uniforms for the first time in school history for a noon game. It's a blackout at high noon. Now, that was bad. That was bad. Almost as bad as your performance. You got beat by a terrible Arkansas team. You're a dead program. Back-to-back losing seasons. This is about to be your third losing season. This is going to be your 3rd losing season in a row. You're 5-4. Great. Who's your next 3 games against? Let's look and see. At LSU, loss. At Mizzou, loss. Home against Florida State. Loss. Congratulations. You're 5-7, Florida. Your 3rd straight losing season. Year 2. Supposed to be a big step forward for normal people, but not if you're Sunbelt fucking Billy. Not if you're the Cajun Willie Taggart. Not if you're the retarded lost nephew of the swamp people. Nope. Giant step backwards for you in year 2. Bring in Graham Mertz to save the day. Didn't listen to anybody. He's horrific. You've got one offensive player, Ricky Pearsall, that wants to do anything. ETN is good, but nobody can run around that fucking pasta strainer you call an offensive line. Your defense is getting worse as the season goes along, which is weird because you told everybody that Austin Armstrong was the secret ingredient. That fucking dead leg coach you brought in. Turns out that was not true. Now you've resorted to talking about absolutely nothing outside of next year's recruiting class. Let's do the math here. There'll be freshmen in 2024. The majority of those players will not matter at all until 2026. A handful of them may play some in 2025. You are going to be at the bottom of the SEC totem pole for the foreseeable future. And that's just a fact. You're down there with Vandy, and whichever Mississippi school is the worst in any random year. That's where you are. That's where you are. You are going to have 4 losing seasons in a row, including 3 straight with Sunbelt Billy Napier. Billy Napier is going to have a 100% record at having a losing record. He's 2 for 2 now. In his second year, he's going to have his second losing season. In his third year, he's going to have his third. Check the Florida schedule next year. Florida will have a worse. If Florida goes 5-7 this year, they're going 4-8 next year. That's just a fact. They are terrible. They are a dead program. They are the worst Power 5 program in their own state, and that's sad because there's 4 of them, and one of them just became a Power 5 team yesterday, Central Florida, and they get the pleasure of beating you next year, as does Florida State and as does Miami. You have to play all 3 of them next year. You play Central Florida, Miami, and Florida State. How in the absolute fuck are you going to justify losing to every other Power 5 program in your state in the same season? How are you going to do that? Miami's going to boat race you. Florida State's going to dog walk you. Central Florida's going to donkey stomp you. And Uncle Lou is going to be on here every goddamn week pointing and laughing at you bunch of fucking dumbasses who still think Billy Napier knows what the fuck he's doing. He doesn't. He's a 9-year-old who snuck into a fucking titty bar and y'all haven't caught his ass yet. Do better.